Who is John Ratcliffe? He's going to be the new head of the Central Intelligence Agency, which is kind of a really important thing. Well, he's the former DNI big cheese, former congressman. He also exposed the Clintons' nefarious Russian collusion hoax stuff. So on paper, he looks great, but I don't know John. Kevin Shipp, I'm sure, has some ideas. Joining me now, former CIA officer, author of the book Twilight of the Shadow Government, Kevin Shipp. Okay, Kevin, John Ratcliffe, he's the one I'm least certain of. Not that I'm doubting him at all, but he's the one I've been texting everybody I know about. What do we think about Ratcliffe? What do we think about Ratcliffe? Because I know how important CIA is for this country. So, Kevin, what should we think about Ratcliffe?
Well, I think the most important thing about Ratcliffe is, by all accounts, he's an honest man. He's a good conservative, and he was the only one in the intelligence community that stood up for Donald Trump during the Russia collusion hoax, when even the CIA and John Brennan were leaking the information as if it was intelligence. So he's a man of integrity, a man of honor. As you mentioned, he was the director of national intelligence, so he has that experience. He was a good 5-year congressman, so he knows the system and he knows Washington. Personally, I think he's a great choice.
Okay, well, that heartens me a great deal to hear you say it. Now, first of all, let's begin with you. What did you do for the Central Intelligence Agency?
Oh, goodness. I started off as a protective agent on a protective detail of William Casey during Iran-Contra. I was in the Special Investigative Unit of the Counterespionage Group searching. There was a mole in the CIA that was turning information over to the Soviets. We were doing the search for him. I was the assistant team leader, and they want me to call it an anti-terrorism assault team. I was the assistant team leader on a team that went in to counter the New People's Army in Manila, Philippines, who were gunning down entire police departments, killing Marines, and were targeting our U.S. Embassy. So I did that. I was a second in command on a secret base in the Midwest. And in the event of all of this, I uncovered a vulnerability to the cover of our agents overseas. And that's kind of what started my journey to come out and discuss the CIA.
Okay, so basically you had the coolest career in the history of mankind. How do you hunt for a mole? What do you do?
Oh, goodness gracious. Well, it's an extensive process. The CIA, of course, has records and connection to records all over the world, all over the globe, with assets and informants and their databases. We go through all of that and try to link the information that was leaked, in this case to the Soviets, to the person who would have access to that. And that's like sometimes finding a needle in a haystack, but it's possible. It can take months. The case I had eventually went to the desk of the President of the United States. It was a GS-15 senior CIA official. The main mole, however, turned out to be FBI Special Agent in Charge, Robert Hansen. So we eventually did get him, but it is a massive, basically digital and overseas intelligence manhunt, tracking down where this information is coming from that's being given to the Soviets or whatever foreign intelligence service.
Why are you no longer in the CIA?
Well, when I was in the CIA, I uncovered a vulnerability. I did an investigation on our connections through U.S. embassies, and I found it appeared pretty strongly that any foreign intelligence service could go into the open visa section to the unclassified computers, penetrate easily the system, go in and look at the codes and identify the identities of our covert agents in that country, the chief of stations, and by extension, their assets. I put together an extensive report, submitted it to CIA management and the division responsible. My report was destroyed 4 times. Even after giving it to the division personally, I received a phone call on the telephone saying, drop this investigation or it's the end of your career. My report was leaked to the Department of State Inspector General's office, who called me and said they thought there was something to my report. They were going to do a global investigation, but this was a secret. Do not tell the CIA. They were going to do this investigation without their knowledge because they'd been covering it up. It turned out to be the case.
Why in the world would the CIA not want a report like that? Kevin, my mind goes to a bunch of very nefarious places, but I read a bunch of spy novels. Why in the world would the CIA not want that?
Well, when I provided them all the when I provided them, sorry, I'm getting a little bit of feedback. When I provided them all the information they needed to fix this, the documents were destroyed and I was threatened and the investigation had to go outside. Why in the world would the CIA not want to fix this when I gave them all the tools to do it, but instead covered it up and actually destroyed my documents from the server in CIA headquarters? The only conclusion I can reach is that they wanted that open door there for plausible denial if there was a chief of station who wasn't playing by the rules, or if they wanted to write off some assassination or other operation to a foreign power. They could say that foreign power went in through the visa section and identified that person. I think, and this is just my opinion because everybody is still scratching their head, but I think it was for plausible denial in case they needed a scapegoat.
Oh, that's friggin' wonderful. Why didn't the JFK files get released? Mike Pompeo famously told Donald Trump, hey, don't do this. And it's so odd for those of us who are, look, we just want information. Everybody who could have been involved in something like that domestically is dead, or in the very least, they're about to be. They're ancient by now. Why still the secrecy? It creates distrust.
Yeah, and Mike Pompeo is a good man, West Point graduate, but I think he went native when he got into the CIA. As a matter of fact, he put out an assassination order for Julian Assange. He called Tucker Carlson and threatened him with arrest for talking about it. And then Mike later has stated that he regretted not doing the reform that he should have while he was in there. Those 5,000 pages that remain on Kennedy should be released. There's no reason that they shouldn't, but people shouldn't get their hopes too high because I can guarantee you, knowing how some of these operations go, that the files directly related to the operation itself and how it was to be conducted were probably immediately destroyed after the assassination and no longer exist. The other files are probably holding on to because they're like pointers or indicators or puzzle pieces that people could put together.
Okay. Tell people again about your book. I'm going to be buying your book like 30 seconds after we hang up, Kevin.
Oh, thank you. It's called Twilight of the Shadow Government, How Transparency Will Kill the Deep State. And I wrote this, defied the CIA and wrote this without their approval, knowing that they would redact most of it if they even let it be published at all. So I wrote this at some personal risk, reason being for people to know what the CIA is all about. The CIA will probably take the royalties, my royalties from this book, and it's a bestseller. My wife has set up a GoFundMe page to counter that. So I am taking some risk, but that is how strongly I believe that the American people need to know what the CIA is doing without their knowledge.
I cannot wait to find out. Kevin Shipp, Twilight of the Shadow Government is the book. You come back soon, please, sir. I could spend a long time with you. I would thank you for coming to my YouTube channel, but I know how brilliant it is, and I know you love it here. So subscribe and watch. We're going to start really ramping things up and putting some funny stuff, some interesting stuff out there, some collaborations. Either way, my YouTube channel is officially the place to be. So stick around.